Alright, this video is to walk you through analysis of the graphs that you made yesterday. So before you do anything else, if you don't have your graphs finished, you need to stop this video, go back, finish making your graphs, and then come back here. If you have your graphs done, you need your journal out, open to page 18 and 19, and you're also going to need some colored pens or pencils. You need red, yellow, orange, blue, and green. Now blue and green specifically are going to be used to do some shading, so pencils are better for that, or even crayons if you've got those. So let's look at our graphs here. Now these are my graphs. They're going to be obviously different from yours. So anytime I'm talking about numbers, I'm talking about the process. So the numbers, the timestamps, and all of that is going to be a little bit different for your graphs. The first thing that we're going to do is to figure out what is the maximum height that the ball got to, and where is that on our graph. Well, on our position time graph, that's really easy to find. All you do is just follow the line all the way up to the top. Now take your red pen or pencil, and I want you to circle that. So this data point is at 0.65 seconds for my graph. And the thing that you need to remember is this position graph and this velocity graph are showing the exact same motion of the ball. So wherever the ball hit its maximum height on the position graph, the same timestamp is going to be the case over here on the velocity graph. So 0.65 seconds, and just draw a circle around that. And what you might notice is that we've circled the spot where this velocity graph line crosses the x-axis. So what is our velocity at the point when the ball hit its maximum height? Well, it's going to be 0 meters per second. Because what happens is you throw the ball up, and it goes up, 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 and it slows down and slows down and slows down. And right before it comes back, it actually has to stop for just a split second. So the velocity of the ball at its maximum height is 0. Now I want to find out, where did the ball actually leave my hands? And for this one, we're going to go over here to the velocity time graph. So this part of the graph right here where the line is going up, this is actually when the ball was still in my hands, and my hands were pushing the ball up into the air. Right here at the peak of this graph is where I let go. As soon as I let go of the ball, the velocity starts to go down because now it's slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. So I'm going to circle this spot in yellow. That's where the ball left my hands. Now I want to find the corresponding point over here. Now a lot of people think that it's right here as soon as the graph starts to turn upward. But that's not the case. Look where our circle is here. 0.35 seconds. So if we go over here to 0.35 seconds, well, that's partway up the line. So we're going to circle that in yellow as well. So this part of the graph before that on the position graph is where my hands were actually physically moving the ball upward. Right here is where it left my hands. And then it went up, 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 up. It stopped for that split second and then came back down, 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 and I caught it somewhere along the way. So we're going to go back to the velocity graph again. Here's where it hit its maximum height, and then it's speeding up as it comes back down toward the ground. And right here, where the velocity starts to slow down, is where it actually got back to my hands. This is where I caught it. So we're going to circle that in orange. Right here, the velocity starts to slow down after that, because my hands are physically slowing the ball down. So again, I want to find that corresponding point over on my position graph. And again, a lot of people think it's right here where it gets closer to 0, but it's not. Let's look at our time code. On mine, 0.9 seconds. So we're going to find that same spot and circle that in orange. So the beginning part of the graph on the position time and the ending part of the graph is where the ball was actually in my hands. Now we're going to do some shading with our blue and green. And the first thing I want to know is, when was the ball moving up? Well, that's this whole first half of the graph, all the way until it actually hits this peak. So we're going to shade in the left half of that position graph. We'll do the same thing over here on the velocity graph. The entire positive section of our velocity time graph is the ball moving upward. Positive velocity means it's moving away from our origin, which in this case is our motion detector. So we're going to shade underneath that line in blue as well. The other part of the graph is where the ball was moving down. We're going to shade that in green. So this whole right half of the position graph, shaded in green. And the same thing over here. Negative velocity means that the object is coming back toward the origin, in this case the motion detector. So we're going to shade that part of our velocity graph in green as well. And so we can see that even though our graphs look a little bit different when you first glance at them, you can see that they're showing the same motion and we can get the same information off of them. The next thing that you're going to do is to calculate the slope of your velocity graph, specifically the slope of the graph when the ball was in the air. So we're going to pick 2 points, not the very highest point and not this very lowest point, but 2 points along this straight line of a graph, and we're going to use those to calculate the slope. If you remember from our last lab, the slope of a velocity time graph is acceleration. So what we're calculating here is the acceleration of the ball while it was in the air. After you have finished all of this, if you've not already done so, glue those graphs in on page 18, make some tabs so that they can flip out of the way and you can still see your data chart. Again, you're going to calculate your slope, that's your acceleration for the lab, and then you're going to use that to calculate your percent error. In the calculation section on page 19, I want you to show the work for calculating your slope, and then in the equation for finding percent error, you've got actual and you've got calculated. Actual is the real acceleration due to gravity, which in this case we're going to use negative 9.8 meters per second squared. I know we use negative 10 usually in calculations, but for labs we want to be as accurate as possible, and so we're going to use negative 9.8. The calculated in the percent error equation is going to be that slope of your line. So actual acceleration versus the calculated acceleration for your lab. And that's going to tell you how off from, quote, reality you are. After you do that, you're going to answer all 3 of those conclusion questions. Number 1 asks about the velocity of the ball at its maximum height. Well, you've already figured that out. It's 0. The second question, acceleration of the ball at its maximum height, is whatever you calculated. It's the slope of that line. And then the third question talks about, well, why didn't we get exactly negative 9.8 meters per second squared? That's what we call our sources of error. What are some things that could have affected our results? That doesn't mean that you calculated something wrong or you made a mistake. If you make a mistake in a lab, go back and fix it. Do it the correct way. Sources of error are, why is our percent not 0? What could have caused that? So think about some extra things about the ball itself or what was happening in the room. What could have affected those answers? After you finish all of these calculations and your conclusion questions, you can go on and get started on your lab summary.